You are now listening to F&B Radio.
And welcome to F&B Radio. My name is Lindsay Collins, and I am your host. We're in front of a live studio audience today. Audience, will you make some noise for us? Just to prove it. Just because I know that some of you think I'd never leave my home, and that may or may not be true. But today I have, and I want to thank the audience for braving the weather. It was kind of slushy, to say the least. But everyone showed up, and for good reason. We have Hannah Welton of Welton's Tiny Bakeshop here.
Howdy.
Hannah, thank you so much for doing this.
This is incredible.
When I asked Hannah to do this, I was like, she's never going to say yes because it's the middle of Charleston Wine and Food, and chefs notoriously need to be in their place of business. But we're going to talk about your team in a minute because I know that's how you're able to be here right now. And the fact that bakers get up early. So I have a feeling you've already been working.
I've already lived a full life today. So this is starts around 2:30 in the morning. So this is like midday lunch.
2:30 in the like you're at the bake shop.
Like we are awake and moving and grooving. My God. I'm already drinking coffee by 3 a.m. for sure, which is incredible. That's why I'm not drinking much now because I would be shaking my little hearts out.
Wow. I mean, that is truly though the life of someone who gets up before the people get up because the case is full by what time? What time do you guys officially kick open the doors?
The doors open at 8. Cases should be done and ready by 7:40. But yeah, definitely it's wild for sure. Those hours, they go by in like the blink of an eye.
Yeah, I can't imagine waking up and starting my day, but it is kind of a meditative state. And I want to talk about kind of the inception of Welton's Tiny Bake Shop. But before we do that, I am just on a personal level really curious where your background in food kind of began, or even just the desire to be in food, because I know you've done many things before opening Welton's. So
definitely. So I'm from Houston, Texas. I danced and did ballet my entire life, from like 3 to 18, dancing professionally at Houston Ballet. So fun. Definitely like my creative outlet, and food definitely was not number one priority for me and my lifestyle. It was more like rice cakes and fuel and protein to get through the day. And I, turned 18, and I just like a light switch went off for me, and I fell in love with food, like head over heels.
What was the first thing that you were like, holy, like started, because I know what you mean when you start like finally paying attention to it, like it can happen even later on in life. Some people are like, I never cared about food until this point. So was there something you remember that?
Honestly, I was super lucky to go on a trip to Italy, and I had tomatoes for the first time. And I was like, what the hell is this? Like, this is incredible. Like balsamic, fresh mozzarella, like all the things that like now make my heart sing even more. But back then, when I felt like I was just a child, just my eyes opened. And then I had the great pleasure of working for Chris Shepherd at a restaurant called Underbelly. I was a hostess there.
Oh my God. Dude, I love him so much.
He is heart of gold.
Yeah, and has done so much for the industry, like beyond measure. Chris Shepherd. How did you just ended up there like hosting?
Yeah, I was just living in Houston. I was like, I really want to work at the best restaurant in Houston at the time. Again, this is like a new foodie, my 18-year-old self. And I worked for him for 5 months and then immediately enrolled in culinary school. So it definitely was kind of the train that started it all. Was, I also love people. Like, people are everything in terms of just bonding and relationships. It's like part of my love language is, communication and all of that. So being a hostess, felt like I could really explore that and also fall in love with food at the same time. And then it just was culinary school and, working in restaurants all over Houston and Austin, and found my way to Charleston because I wanted to work at the best restaurant here at the time. And that was, in my eyes, it was Husk, which, back in 2015, Sean Brock was still there, and it was just really groundbreaking. I actually staged with Jason Stanhope. It was between
Jason?
Yeah, Jason. Between Fig and Husk, and I chose Husk, and I'm so grateful I did. I met my husband, love of my life, business partner.
Zach is here. Yeah. First of all, everyone give Zach a round of applause. If you've ever been to Welton's Tiny Bake Shop, they're like the most dynamic duo, and I love the way you guys take care of each other and just keep that business feeling so warm and delicious. Yeah. Oh, sure. Zach. That's so funny because when I moved here, wait, what year was that you moved here?
2015.
Yeah. Okay, so I moved here in 2014, and I staged at both.
Crazy.
And I almost could have ended up at Husk, but they actually wouldn't hire me because
I'm sorry.
No, don't be No. It was like all for the best. But they were like, someone with your background, they were like, you don't want to work with those people. They were like, we find the people that have been at like Per Se and the French Laundry, they're like, they're just they're a couple of prima donnas. Like, they just gave it to me so straight. And I was like, you know what? I am actually. No, I wasn't. But I was like, yeah, that's perfect. They made my decision for me. And I like have always felt that those two restaurants, especially at that time, were like almost sister restaurants. Like this, we knew the staff and like loved each other so much. But that's crazy.
Vibes.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different vibe. But you guys, so what were you working when you met Zach? What were the stations? Where were you?
Was on Garmo, hot apps. I cooked fish. I was very against working pastry, in the most loving of ways to like all pastry chefs and all of the beautiful humans that work that side of things. But I just, as a woman in like a very male-dominated kitchen, I did not want to be classified as like, you're gonna work pastry. That's gonna, this is a safe home for you. I like really wanted to like clean the deep fryer and sear the fish and work the wood fired up and like all those things that like really helped me grow in like a 3-year period. And I had some incredible mentors, but it definitely was, I'd like fight for it. And it was not the most fun in that element of like basically begging people for my, leaders to work Hot Expo. And, I want to break down fish and I want to cook the fish. And it definitely was a challenge.
That seems like it would be kind of like in the very, very deep past, but it's really not. And even when I was working at Per Se, I was one of the first female expos they had ever had. And the restaurant had been open for almost 10 years. It was 7 years when I worked there. So it was like, felt weird to be like shattering a ceiling and you're like, wait, this is like,
this is wild.
What?
Yeah.
Well, I was like, I also have a bank account if that shocks anyone. But it was weird how they automatically were like, if you're a woman, you're like going to, especially restaurants of that caliber, it's like, they kind of assumed that you were going to go into pastry or bakery or like front of house, or there were like sort of like these gender specified roles that were specified without saying so. So it is, I know exactly what you're saying, that they are just like, oh, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, like that might be too hard for you.
Right.
Like, but that's the point. Like everyone loves a challenge, no matter like what, realm of work that you do. It's like the way that you grow as a human. And I really like fought for it. And Zachary was also my boss at the time, so that was like a little bit of a challenge, a little layer in there, in terms of just, any work environment is pretty intimate. No matter if you work for a corporate company, you still have your intimate group of leadership around you, and, you just got to push until you, and fight for yourself. And that's what I definitely did until we were ready to like move on to our next chapter, which was us moving to Tulum, Mexico.
What? Yeah. I missed this whole part of your life. Wait,
yeah.
So, when did you go to Tulum?
We moved there in 2018, so it was like obviously passionate about wood-fired cooking. Heartwood was a restaurant in the jungle, 4 outlets, basically, little electricity. So that was a whole other challenge of, us working, in a different country. With no air conditioning, fully outside. There's lizards and snakes and just the most bizarre of services and the most magical place at the same time. I mean, we're both, and myself truly, very passionate. I'm a very passionate person, and cooking and feeding people is all part of that. But then cooking outside and feeding people is just this other layer of magic that is very hard to explain. And unless you're eating, I love eating outside. I think it makes all of your senses just go, and that was Heartwood for me at the time. And Zachary and I were there for 1.5 years.
Wow.
And they were like, do you want to do pastry? And I was like, fuck, fine. You know what? I will also do that. But I also want to make ceviche every day. And, and that's, I got to do best of both worlds there. And that's where the pastry door started to open for me.
So you had studied all savory at culinary school.
Yeah.
You didn't study pastry or baking. Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
What is cooking in the what does pastry in the jungle look like?
Making honey pie in a wood-fired oven. Talk about wild.
Honey pie is a classic. Who's had the honey pie? Have you guys been to Welton's and had the honey pie? Oh my God.
Yeah, she's sweet. She's decadent. That's where it originated. But we were living in the Yucatan, and it's the Mayan honey is the soul of Tulum, and just the whole region. And so that was, trying to create a shelf-stable dessert where you don't have refrigeration. Like, that was it that's what we were exploring. And, I feel like I made it for family meal one day, and then it was on the menu, and it's still on the menu to this day. And I still make it every week. I actually, this past month, have passed the recipe on to one of our beautiful team members, and it's like, it feels incredible, but it's still like my little baby.
Because that is one of talk about the challenges of being outside. I've been camping one time and was so proud of what I could make outside. I was like, there's just another level of attainment where you're like, I made this outside. People are not respecting what it takes to make something outside. Where I'm like, you can't keep anything cool. I can't believe that recipe.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwich tastes better outside.
Yes, no, it truly does. So I can't imagine putting something like honey pie on a menu, executing that in a jungle. That's absolutely wild, but it's so cool because as you're telling me this story, I feel like all of these components are still so prevalent in what you do. There's an element of outside dining at Welton's. There's menu items that are something that you've kept and continue to make every single day until now.
It's pretty magical. For sure.
I see the influences all over it. And that's one of the amazing things that I want to talk about is just the success that Welton's has had. Doesn't surprise me because you guys create an atmosphere that I think is really a dying breed in our industry. And it's just become harder and harder to actually feel like people see you in a restaurant setting. I don't know if anybody else feels like that, but not for any, not like they're doing a bad job. I just think that we lost a lot of the connectivity and the ability to connect, or even the understanding of how to connect during 2020 in that era. And so coming back to that, the restaurant industry is still trying to find its footing. And when you go to a busy place, you're like, oh, these guys are busy. This is awesome. I'll just take whatever I can get. I just want to be here. I want to be in the action. But when you go to Welton's, you don't just stand in line. They come out and bring you little bites while you're standing in line. The staff is so unbelievably, takes their time. It's two people in at a time. But when you're in there, you feel like you're the only person in the world. They don't rush you. How do you create a team like that in an industry where people are literally hashtag good help is hard to find? Because it's hard.
We are so lucky. I could just cry and cry and cry talking about how beautiful our team is. They really are the backbone to everything that we do. And, we all have bad days, and I feel like our team just comes to work with the best attitude. Zachary and I are such a proponent of quality of life and communication and request time off and spend time with your family and take those trips and also come to work and have the best day ever and make everyone else's day while doing so in a very natural way. And I just gosh, they're the fucking best. They really are.
It's so true. They're the best. I even in the busiest times, during the holidays, when you go in there, you never get that, I would rather be somewhere else feeling. The staff is always just this is the happiest place on earth. And it kind of radiates out from there. And I know that this success is just because of that attitude that you cultivate, which is you matter and we're happy you're here, which seems like it wouldn't be that hard to do, but it really is. And that's one of the things I'm also curious about with Welton's being such a tiny place. Tiny's in the name.
Yeah.
I just, on a personal level, trying to get 20 English muffins toasted at one time, just felt really scared. And you guys are just faced with lines of people. I know it all starts in the beginning, but kind of walk us through the beginning of the week where you're what are we putting on the menu? How are we going to do this? And the weird operational stuff that has to happen to put that show on. Because I know it's a big one.
It's definitely incredibly spontaneous with what's in season, where Zachary and I will wake up, on our 1 day off or 2 days off and what's making you happy today? Green garlic is, finally ready for harvest on John's Island. Let's go down there and get it. Or Mr. Pete's, Pete Ambrose has his first of the season strawberries, and Zachary's driving down there to beg him, please, can we just have 4 pounds? I know you have 60 pounds allotted to all these other incredible restaurants. And he's okay, fine. Only 4 pounds though.
To twist some arms.
Yeah. And so, it's really we are so lucky to live where we where we do in terms of we have incredible produce, incredible grains, incredible seafood. Like it is this niche market and just niche. Where we live is so special.
It is. I like the things that are in season here. When they're in season, you'll see them in other regions, but not all at the same time. We have our own like timeline that's wacky where things get put together in different combinations. You're like, when it's right, you just got to take it.
Yeah. And we're like in that peak moment right now where like citrus season is like falling and berry season's coming, and grain season is, everything's getting harvested right now. It's super special, and I think that makes our menu at the Bakeshop super fun and creative. And it's also just communication. I think that's the one thing like throughout the week that we push for in terms of what we have that comes in through the door, and then what we can do with what's in the larder. I mean, in terms of pickling and preserving, that's a whole other nature of what we do as well. So, having blueberries in January when we're like, God, we're so sick of what we have. Like, I can't like do any more apple butter. We've been swimming in apple butter for 4 months, and like opening up a can of blueberries that you preserved in June is pure magic, and it's also gets the team like super involved and just gets those juices flowing.
Yes. Oh my God. And then when you first started, you were not making croissants, but now you talk to me about making croissants in this climate, in this place.
Yeah. I'm sweating talking like you saying croissants.
But yours are so unbelievably classic, and I know that that's no small feat. It's very, very difficult to do. What has that process been like?
It's definitely been a challenge. I mean, the first 7 months we were open, we were making croissants every week, and it basically boiled down to like, we're not going to sell this. Like, this is a great little snack, we'll keep trying. I mean, obviously we're using flour that's freshly milled, which changes every aspect of hydration of the dough. It also could be 99 degrees, 100% humidity, or it could be 50 degrees and no humidity. There's just really it's a gamble for sure. We're finally are hitting our stride and honing in on our croissant. I mean, I think that Zachary and I will always say it could be better. It could be better. And that's also our mentality with everything. It's always pushing to just be the best that we can, but in a very healthy mind state, not toxic, which is what I grew up with in terms of in restaurants where perfection, it can be a very scary thing. I think accountability between our team members is a huge part of the success of the bakery too, and just the way our product is. If it's not good enough, it's let's brainstorm and talk through all these details of why this cake is dry or why this biscuit is lost all of its butter for no reason at all. There's definitely failures, and it's definitely peaks and valleys. But communication, I think, is the one thing that makes our team just push through and be resilient and figure it out,
It's so true. And I really relate to what you just said about the places that maybe we've worked, or even in the past where restaurants, it was I remember distinctly scalding the onions when you're making a giant rondeau. And it's they kick you out. They're get out, go home.
Go home.
And it's what am I going to learn about onions at my house?
Yeah.
I'm just going to go home and go out and be oh, I got kicked out of work today. It doesn't teach you anything, and it makes you even more scared to try or to put yourself out there doing something that is a little bit out of your depth,
totally.
Technique wise, but it's we're all here to learn. And I think in the past it's just been I would get told this a lot at those kind of restaurants is that can't happen here. And just the idea that something wouldn't go wrong in food is ludicrous. Of course anything can happen. The butter will lose its, the biscuit loses its butter for no reason. And you're
honestly a very shocking experience. I don't know if any of y'all have ever witnessed that. We don't know. That is something that we still don't know.
It just went out for cigarettes and never came back.
It just never came back. It just leaked out everywhere.
And then you just
that was a dark morning, but you know what? You just find a solution. You make more biscuits. You talk about it. You joke about it. You problem solve as a team. You don't make people feel bad for dropping 6 glasses and shattering them on the floor in the middle of a bake-off. Not pointing to you, Zachary, but you know what I mean.
She was actually. She did.
Mistakes happen in all workplaces, and I think just being positive and optimistic on how to not do it again, is the best mindset, and also keeps like a healthy morale amongst your team members.
That's right, because it's like if it's just too scary to even walk through the door, like you're really never gonna you're never gonna get better.
You're never gonna blossom.
You're never gonna get blossom.
Yeah.
One of the things I feel like you two have had a lot of great travels, and I always love to ask this of anybody who's like passionate about. I just think the things that you put on the menu are not things that you see in many other places, either because they're too hard or because it's just not something we've been exposed to. One thing that comes to mind is the egg tart, the Portuguese egg tart. I'm like, this is a pastry that haunts me from Welton's, but like, what is a pastry that haunts you, and in a good way, like something that you've had and you can never forget it?
I honestly, like the first time I ever had a Queen Amman changed my life.
Yeah.
I was in Washington State in a small town called Edison, and it was a mini Queen Amman, and I just was like mind blown by how something could be so flaky and so crunchy and so sweet and so savory all in the same notes. And I'm still like trying my hardest to hone in on that to this day, and like chasing that bite. Also chasing the bite of like honey pie. It's something that like I wish I could go back and eat honey pie again for the first time. I did make honey pie one time with all salt and no sugar.
Oh my God.
Which was like the third time I made it, because I was like, okay, I have this really cool thing going, like, at Heartwood, and I really wanted to show it off to the team, and everyone like had heartburn. It was so bad. Like it was a scene out of a movie. Like, I'm not eating
more
this.
Water.
Yeah.
Anybody have any water?
So bad.
That happened to me when something's too salty. It's always like people want to try to make it not too salty. They want to be like, it's just at the end you get a a little salty. You're like, no, actually, my tongue fell off.
I actually need to go home. I'm so uncomfortable.
It's like a slug that you just poured salt on. Yeah, no, it's, I totally agree. And I think those bites that you have where you're like, I've never had anything like that. It's just something like, luckily there's places where you can get Queen Amman, which thanks for saying it so beautifully. I was always like, Kugana. Oh, damn it.
Kugan almond is what we say at the bakery too.
It has,
yeah. Also, you can say whatever you want to say.
Queen Amman.
Yeah.
That's way prettier. That is truly one of the things that I think you guys do so well. The individual layers, like alone, it's like a geometrical work of art. Like they're so
Honored.
Beautiful.
I will sleep well hearing that.
One of the last things I wanted to talk to you about was just the addition of Tiny's, the pop-up that's happening in the alleyway, how that came to be and kind of what your plans are. Yeah.
For us, we definitely, so our whole business model started with us cooking wood-fired pizza outside around Charleston 3 years ago. Going brewery to brewery, and as magical as that was, obviously rain like today, or
it's a problem.
Some quick flooding could happen. There was just so many variables that really shifted our service and sustainability for a small business. And that's really what grew into the Bakeshop and how we found our way there. And then we were like, well, shoot. After a year and a half of the bakery, we're like, we really miss cooking pizza outside. We finally have 4 walls where we have some, security, and we have a dish station and like very small things that like have
luxuries.
Yeah. And so, cooking outside in January here was our avenue of like to be able to be creative. It was a little bit slower. We wanted to encourage our team members, like, let's do some menu development together. Let's get inspired by what's on the produce list, finally like able to take a deep breath and get into like a creative rhythm again after the holidays. And so Tiny's was, our extension of the original pop-ups that we were doing with some more formality around it. But also encouraging like, what it would look like if we had a restaurant one day that was just wood-fired pizza and, natural wine. So we've just been, it's a project. It's just a fun, I think, mental project for not only Zachary and I, but our whole team to just continue to be inspired. I do think that the majority of our cooks come from working the line as well, which I feel like is very rare. Yeah. And, we have our sous chef, Jared, who, worked at Chubby Fish, and, Tatum, who worked at Tempest. And these are folks that like also have this really curious side to them to still, cook savory food. And we want to encourage that. And that's where Zachary and I came from. We are not trained bakers at all. So
I just want to like formally say that though, because that blew my mind. I was like, the fact that you would not have been formally trained and just, I love to bake, and I I try my hand at it, but I'm like, the level and the technical heights that you guys reach are like pretty staggering in terms of what I've seen people be able to do, and just the craft that you have made out of that. And like, I know how hard that can be and how many variables that can be. And I feel like even chefs like Jason Stanhope and people that I've worked with, they're always like mildly obsessed with getting some sort of bread, biscuit, pastry on croute dough. Like, it is something that will foil even the most talented chefs.
It's foiled us for sure.
But I like, you guys, no, you just continue to push for the most amazing things and bring such a variety of things that I can't believe we have in this city. And I'm
grateful to be a part of it. I mean, I feel like all cities need bakeries. I mean, that's the heart and soul of some of the best cities in the world, and even the small towns, you know, to be able to be a stop where, you know, the coolest thing is that we get to be a part of someone's day like we're probably the first or second people they talk to. And I think that's super special. I think it goes for also coffee shops around town, you know, like that 8 a.m. window, the mornings that you get to spend with people. It's like you're there to, you know, be the kickoff to their day. And I think that's important in all communities, you know.
It really is.
Yeah,
It's
providing a
beautiful
safe space.
thing. And you guys do it so beautifully.
Yeah, thank you.
I do want to leave a little bit of time in case you have questions. If you don't have questions, it's okay too. Don't feel like you have to make one up. But any questions for Hannah? Anybody out there working on a recipe that they can't figure out?
Love this.
I actually do. I have one for you because Joel Sadler. Yes.
Joel.
I'm curious if y'all get this when you come into your space, but people will say, "Oh, this is so cute. I'd really like to open something like this myself, maybe when I'm retired." And usually, I go into a dark place when I hear people say that, but I am curious if someone really asks you about it. What are like the things that come to mind of like, well, in my mind, it's like here are the top 3 reasons to never.
Yeah. Those always come up.
From y'all's perspective, based on your experience, when people say that kind of thing, because you make it look easy, what are the things that people are missing?
I mean, I definitely think that when people say, "Wow, this place is so cute," I want to open up one of these in my town, you know, and I'm a lawyer. I'm like, that's wonderful.
No.
No. The first thing that comes to my mind is like, this is our livelihood. This is something that we are passionate about, like from our head to our toes in every single wavelength of our life, where, you know, I would never sign someone up to be a small business owner unless they weren't dedicated to the craft and to do something leisurely. That's wonderful. Like make those pastries at home, start a pastry club with your friends. Like there's a lot of elements that go to being a small business owner besides what people see when they walk in. Labor and, you know, just the amount of what it costs to run a business is insane. And whatever city that you're in can be the most challenging to even grow, including this one that we're in now. So those are all the things that like really come to my mind. And it's hard to not take it as an insult because you're also encouraged, like, thank you so much. I'm so glad you appreciate this place. But it takes a lot, you know. I think it takes a lot to be a professional in anything that you do. And I would never say, "Oh, I want to be a lawyer." You know, I've never taken the bar, and you know, it's a strange. I just take it with a grain of salt. Yeah. Yeah.
That's why. I love that question. Any other questions? No? Okay.
Yay.
Wait, Miles.
Hi, Miles.
Hi, Miles.
How's it going, Hannah?
How are you?
I love Welton's. It's a
Aw.
great bakery. I really like being there. I haven't tried Tiny's yet, but I'm excited too.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what's next for Welton's Tiny Bakeshop and the brand.
I love that. Well, Zachary and I basically call real estate all over town every day when we drive by. We see something that we like. You know, we're very curious dreamers. Obviously, with that being said, you have to have money to be able to move forward in those kinds of things. So I think a really healthy practice that Zachary and I do is we create vision boards, and that's something that like has led us to this day where we are now, where we have a vision board of basically our life that we created during the pandemic, and it's naturally like folded to be that way. And, you know, now we didn't know the bakery would really be as successful as it is in terms of, you know, every day I'm like, wow, people are here. Like, that's really cool. Like, I never, you know, it's still very shocking. But I definitely think we want a larger bakery where we can produce more, have a coffee program, you know, really be able to like do the full picture, including pizza and like the same roof.
Oh, yes. Oh my God.
But it can't be at 682 King Street. And we are at, you know, we've come to terms with that. And as much as we would like to be downtown, it might, you know, we live on James Island, you know, that's something that we think about in terms of location. I think location is everything in terms of what your next business venture is. You can have the best business plan in the world, but if you don't have a location, then it really, it can get confusing, for sure. So I just want to be able to bake for the city. And I also want to be able to feed people pizza and them not have to sit in the rain. So that's what we're really trying to focus on in the next year.
Amazing. Oh my God. You know, I will be the first one in line always. I'm like, I love how it feels like such a community thing. I feel like the Charleston has really gotten behind Welton's because it does feel like, even though we're not getting up at 2:30 and baking pastries, that we're a part of it. Like,
totally.
You feel like
Oh my
excited
God.
to see what is in the case. It's always something new, and then there's old favorites as well. But it feels so fun to watch that I don't know about you guys, but I like want to just be a part of it. You have that kind of magnetic pull.
It's the team. It's just an organic environment that we have our little notes on our iPad where we write down people's birthdays and, you know, regulars' dog names, and just so we care so much, and not just Zachary and I, but our whole team about, you know, Charleston and our community. And I really it's a way for all of us to be a part of it, a small part of it.
Well, it's an honor, and I can't thank you enough for your time. I know we're going to let you get back to your world and restaurants, but guys, thank you so much. One more round of applause for Hannah Welton.
Paraît que les ciels sont plus beaux. Un vol direct avec l'escale pour passer des nuits à Oslo. On enverrait des cartes postales. Je laisserai un mot sur le